Look at Bentley running on the ice. Welcome to Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails. We're up at the farm, and this is the perfect time to do some postseason scouting. We've got a snow forecast up to 10 inches for starting tonight, so we've got a good chance to see the deer sign on the ground, which is ideal. I like doing the postseason scouting when I can still see the prior year's sign. So we don't have very much snow left. We're going to do some walking. I haven't really been on this farm very much. I mean, we bought it kind of late, and I did very little scouting. So most of the spots we're going to go to are places that I have not been before. So that'd be kind of cool. But in general, my whole game plan with any kind of scouting is to find the entry and exit routes. So I kind of call it scouting backwards. You know, most people start by trying to find the spots that have the best sign, where the buck activity appears to be the highest, and then they try to figure out how to hunt it. And when I scout, I do just the opposite. I'm looking for the entry and exit routes, and then I'll try to find places near those that you know, have at least some chance of producing a shot. May not be the best spot on the whole property, but it'll be one that we can hunt without spooking the deer, without educating any deer. And this will be Jordan's first time ever postseason scouting. So we're going to spend a little time talking about the basics of what you look for. I'm going to start right here with this, I guess it's a food plot. It was beans, and there's still quite a bit of, I think I planted cereal rye in there. There's still quite a bit of that left, and there's actually some beans left. So the deer have not wiped this out. We thought they had during the late season, but there are still some beans here. But one of the big changes I want to make is turning this into a corn plot for next year. So if you remember, Jordan, how much trouble we had coming in and out of here.
Yeah, because they could see all the way down the whole valley.
Right. So if it was planted to corn, we'd be able to sneak through the corn, and I wouldn't have the blind clear on that upper end. You know, because if the wind is coming down the valley, you just got too many deer that get downwind of it.
Yeah, because it seemed like a couple of the times when we hunted out of that, the deer ended up like in that middle kind of field. You'd have some up at the end too, but it seemed like they would tend to kind of gather right there too.
Yeah, there was more on this lower end than I expected.
Yeah.
So we'll have the blind here for late season hunting, but I do still like what we call the scrape tree, which is right in the line of trees right down through the middle, and that's a pretty awesome spot. We'll probably continue to keep that there and hunt that, but having corn in here would be a game changer. Not only does it allow us to sneak behind it, but obviously the deer are attracted to it too. But yeah, we thought they'd wiped it out, but they really haven't. There are still some beans left. Right to the left of where we're driving was one of the spots where we planted the acorns back in early November. And that should give us a little bit of a buffer too. You know, when it comes eventually, it'll be 5 or 6 years before those oak trees are tall enough to make a difference. But then we can scoot right along the edge, and those oak trees should hide us from anything up above too. And that wasn't necessarily the reason for planting them. Obviously, we're just trying to turn these old pasture acres into something productive for the deer, but that will serve a second benefit for us in allowing us to another way to sneak in and out of here.
Did you plant the beans in here then?
Yeah, I planted them, I can't remember when, early May.
So was it just pasture before that?
Yeah. So
they were running cattle on this as early as last year?
Yeah, last winter.
Okay.
The winter of, I guess into January 22.
Yeah.
Yeah, December 21, January 22, there were still cows here. And then on the other piece that we just got, there were cows there until October, mid to late October of 22. So that hasn't had hardly any time at all, you know, without the cows. So the habitat will bounce back some, you know, from the pasturing, but I still want to look at it from the standpoint of, you know, how to help it along.
Because we could see them on some of the ridges in the drone.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like every ridge had 3 or 4 deer on it.
Yeah.
You know, which isn't a lot, but because we probably have 10 or 15 ridges, so we probably have, you know, 50 deer. But 50 deer, You know, we can find at least one every year out of that bunch. So yeah, just getting to know the property. Postseason scouting is, like I said, super important, and the number one thing you can gain from it is just figuring out how you can get in and out of your hunting area without any of the deer knowing it. So I'm gonna pull up, drive past the blind. There is a trail that goes up this ridge to my left, and we're gonna see if that's open. If it is, we're gonna take the four-wheeler up that one, but we need to go up on these, excuse me, on the other side of the valley, and that'd be a long drive around on the four-wheeler, but we could hike those. So here we go. This looks better up in here than I expected. There's a lot more sign trails coming out of the ridges, out of the bedding areas. But here's a spot that's pretty cool that I knew it was here, but I never tried to hunt it. There's a pond right over to our right. It's a small one, but it always holds water. I think there must be a little natural seep. And this farm actually has about probably 10, I bet it has at least 10 ponds. Some of them we've got to work on. That dog.
Look at him, he's doing it again.
Some of them we've got to work on because they're not holding water. But, you know, water holes and ponds are great places to hunt during the rut. You know, when the bucks are out cruising a lot, one of the things that they will do all the time is stop. Bentley's down in there now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, back to the deer hunting. So the bucks will stop at those water holes. So just knowing where they're all at, figuring out how to fix up the ones that aren't holding water. And then like this one, it's down in this valley. I don't really know if it's huntable or not. It might be, but you might have to have a blind.
So do you think they would come off the ridges down to here to get water then?
Yeah.
Or is that how you would hunt that?
Mm-hmm. You could hunt it morning or evening. And because if you look around, it's all ridges around us. They're going to bed.
Right.
They're going to bed all around us where we're at. And even if you look at the amount of sign, I mean, it all kind of converges more or less in this area before it goes down the hill to that little food plot. So this would be a natural. Plus, you could probably, like as deep as this ditch is, you could probably come right up that ditch. You'd have to have a chainsaw and clean that out. But you could come all the way up from the bottom right to here. And even the deer bedded nearby would never know you were there, as deep as that ditch is. So again, the whole scouting backwards mentality of finding your entry and exit routes. So let's go look at that real quick, and I want to show you that ditch.
Yeah.
So the biggest problem with it, as good as this is, it's not perfect because where we start at the bottom is a feeding area. So if you're coming in here for a morning hunt, you'd be bumping the deer off that area coming in. And you'd park there and you'd come up this ditch and you'd be fine, you know, once you got up in here. But then it'd be the same thing if you came in at midday trying to leave in the evening, if you came that direction, you know, going out, which you'd have to come in that way, otherwise the deer would see you.
Right.
So you're always going to be fighting that bedding area at the bottom.
Bedding area?
Or feeding area. Yeah.
Because it exits out at the end of that food plot, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where this starts.
Right. So to get back to the buildings, you'd have to drive the full length of that bottom.
Yeah.
So you'd spook everything in there.
But if there were fully grown trees or standing corn, it might be easier.
I think the deer would still be there. It'd still be. It's really hard when you have to go the full length of a food plot.
Yeah.
You know, to keep any deer around there from knowing that you were there. And this goes back to that old strategy of. See, I told you it was steep. This goes back to that old strategy is if you can't come and go.
He's so weird.
He is weird. If you can't come and go without the deer knowing that you're there, then either you can't hunt the spot or you can't leave. You know, so this would be one of those spots again where you'd say, well, we could, oh, you could crawl into that tube and sleep in that tube.
You could.
Maybe I could. I would sleep in there.
I know you would.
Let's go look at it.
Okay.
That might be part of my next season's plan. But no, I'm leaning more and more toward that strategy, and I know it's not a high one on Jordan's priority list, but it just works so well in this kind of country where when your entry and exit aren't perfect, all you're doing is just educating deer. So if you can find little places to sleep, even if you have to build little structures, or, you know, I've got a lot of ideas about that.
Oh, I know.
All right, let's look at this tube. That might be one of them. All right, before we leave the ditch, I got one more thing to say about it. I love hunting ditches in general. Like I said, this one isn't set up perfect because there's food at the bottom, but normally, you know, a ditch is perfect because the deer go around the steeper parts. Like there's no deer tracks across here, right? There's almost none, if there's even any at all. They're all crossing on top where it's, you know, easier.
Path of least resistance.
It's easy for you to say.
No, it's not.
So that's one of the upsides of ditches. Not only do they provide great entry and exit, where you can, you know, stay below the side of, or the line of sight for the deer bedded around you. It also is a spot they don't travel through, so even your ground scent really doesn't pick up because the deer aren't going through here. And then normally your scent isn't even dispersed because the wind blows over the tops of these. You know, not to say there's not some swirling, but there's a lot of good advantages to hunting ditches. So just beyond the sheer entry and exit, this is, you know, before we leave this spot, one more thing to say. Unfortunately, the spot that looks really good with a little pond and the lane going around the top of this ditch is still down over the top of the ridge top, so there would be wind swirling here. So, you know, we'll keep this one on the list as great spots that maybe we can't hunt, but even here, you know, if you were going to hunt this, you might have to be in a blind.
So what I gathered from this chapter was this would be a good spot, really good spot, if you could get in and out without spooking the deer / sleep up here. So you didn't have to come in and out.
Ideally, there wouldn't be food at the bottom. And then the best spot would be closer to the top.
Right.
So then what you do is you go in with the wind in your face, you just go up the ditch and hunt it at the top, but then your scent blows out over the valley behind you. And the deer aren't really crisscrossing through there that much anyway because they're going around the ditch.
And a blind would negate some of that.
If you weren't at the top.
Right.
If you're at the top, you could hunt from a stand.
Right.
If you're not going to make it all the way up there, then you got to do something to contain your scent.
Since this is down in like a little bowl.
Right.
Yeah.
Then the wind blows over it, and because it's dead air space, it swirls into there.
That makes sense.
Sort of like an eddy in a trout stream, you know, where the water goes past a rock, and on the backside of the rock it swirls. So any spot that's protected from the direct flow of the wind is going to have swirling, and this would be one of those spots.
What if there's someone living in there?
Might be me. I could definitely sleep in there. It doesn't look bad at all. Ah, what's stuck on me? Multiflora rose.
Yes, it does.
Looks warm, cozy, out of the wind, out of the rain.
I will not be joining for that adventure, I don't think. It was kind of cool. Okay, you know what? I take it back. Maybe I could sleep in here.
We need to say that so the camera can hear.
I think maybe I could sleep in here.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in like a spy movie. Ow, my ab just cramped.
Multiflora rose.
Ouch. I just pulled an ab muscle.
All right. I'm thinking maybe we'll do an episode called "Could you sleep in there?" And we'll just go around the farm and just pick spots like that little haunted shack at the bottom of the hill. And then we'll just look at it and we'll go, could you sleep in there? Then each person would have to answer. You changed your mind on the tube.
I think that like in a life or death scenario.
In a big deer or no big deer scenario.
Maybe, if it's warm out.
She could sleep in there.
Okay. Haunted shack though, I'm putting my foot down.
Yeah, we'll look at the haunted shack on the way out.
I could not sleep in there.
All right, well, we're gonna wrap it up here. We'll do some more postseason scouting and we'll hit some more features sometime in the next couple of weeks. We're not gonna have an episode every week probably for a little while because this time of the year, the viewership starts to drop off. People are more interested in other things, but it'll ramp back up again as we get into the spring. And we'll definitely keep bringing you stuff that hopefully you find useful and maybe even entertaining. Well, that's it. Like I said, we appreciate you joining us this week for Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails. We'll see you right back here again next week for the next episode. And remember to always dream big.